I've got a very interesting topic, as topical as one can get. State of the world, the state of companies, the state of the society. You made me focus on something that is very, very part of the very huge and important part of the news cycles today, which is leadership. Uh, just before setting up, I was thinking a couple of things. Uh, what would I like to say? So I remembered something completely from our Doordarshan days. So two episodes uh, stand out very specifically for me. When the Ramayana ended, like Ravan is now waiting to die, so Ram lands up sending Lakshman to take lessons on governing from Ravan, if I remember correctly. Then there is also Bhishma Pitama who's lying on his deathbed for a couple of days, and one of the last things does is guide Yudhishthir on what is the right way to be a good king. Uh, I do not want to limit this to political leadership as of right now. In my head, leadership could also be icons that we look up to. There's a lot of discussions happening and small things being blown up in social media. This guy said this guy shouldn't have said this, and those kind of things are happening. And I am very, very lucky to have Hemant Gupta, as always, as a friend, philosopher, guide on the podcast. He's been a leader, he's worked with leaders. That kind of qualifies him to talk about certain things that he's seen firsthand. Welcome to the show again, Hemant.
Thanks, Bunty. As always, I think.
Yeah. So, what are your first thoughts on? I don't have a question in particular, but just this whole scenario. In fact, you also landed up saying something on the scenario right now, how it impacts us. What is it that you think about leadership and the role of leadership today? Generally, not specifically connected to any situation or any particular leader as of right now.
Yeah. Um, I think I would begin to look at leadership as I think there are some popular and conventional notions that we have of leadership that serve some purpose, but I think under certain circumstances, those framings could be revisited. I think for long we've looked at leadership as a designation, as a person leading certain thing. Over the years, I've realized that leadership, there could be designated leaders because of the various hierarchies that we have assumed to be the norm, whether in political sphere, economic sphere, or social sphere. But I think at the base fundamental, I think there is relationality, how we relate to each other. And on an ongoing basis, I think we need to revisit the idea of static leadership towards dynamic leadership. In the sense that as I speak with you right now, and if somebody were to comment, who's leading this conversation? And is there a designated leader in the conversation? Will that designated leadership change if the topic changes, or if the conversation goes through certain rough patch? Is the leadership in the conversation going to change? So I think as humanity, we can do better than what we have done till yet. And one of the things that we need to do is look at dynamic leadership, distributed leadership, leadership in the context. So on the one side, you have a static leadership which doesn't want to give up on their power and give up on their leadership. And then the only thing that you want is everybody else to be for your followers. That's one kind of leadership, which gets you some certain kind of imagery in the world today. You find certain leaders who are so absorbed, self-absorbed, and they don't want to give up on that power where they've reached. And the only relationship they want to have with others is followership. The other leadership could be, where people don't want to assume this responsibility and just take a back seat and don't want to take that torch forward. When the going is tough, when the going is mountain, when the going is civilizational, a lot of us give up because we believe, what can I do? What will this small thing do really as a difference? So there are these two stark uh, archetypes. And then there's the archetype of, I think on an ongoing basis, all of us have so many things that we deal with people, with things, with our body, with our minds. How do we lead our own self? Are we leading our own self? Are we a leader to our own self, or are we just a follower of our habits and emotions and prejudices and biases? Uh, so I think we need to reimagine leadership, at multiple levels, is how I would at least begin to unfold.
Uh, okay, let me throw a spanner in the works. What you said sounds very ideal, but there is responsibility that needs to be assumed, whether personal, the last example that you gave, or social or political. Whoever is a leader or whoever takes up the mantle of leadership uh, needs to deliver on something. Uh, how does that fit into what you just said? And I mean, because you have been either assuming leadership or you've been elected one, or circumstances have been thrust upon you, uh, whatever the reason might be. Now that you're there in that position of authority to make a difference, how do you see the responsibility aspect in? You can continue to have the example that you had, that there is personal culpability and uh, the bigger responsibility of the society or the political sphere. How do you see responsibility then?
Yeah. I think first invocation, Bunty, would be I think I remember Professor Rajiv Bhargav, if I'm getting his name right. And there was this interesting gathering where he spoke. And he said that there are three kinds of theories: descriptive theory, contemplative theory, and normative theory. In a nutshell, it means descriptive theory describes the situation, describes what is popular, what is convention, what is happening, and it wants to stay away from idealism or what ought to be the case. It just wants to describe. Contemplative theory is that which provokes you, that which evokes you, that which invokes you in something to not accept what is given, not accept what is popular, not accept what is momentum. And normative is it goes on to stretch you towards, are we going to settle down? Are we going to settle with what is around? I mean, are we that? I mean, or are we thinking and conscious human beings who can contribute towards civilization? Maybe not. We don't see the results in a lifetime, and that's okay, because we're bearing fruits of so many people's blood and sweat and toil whom we don't even know. So I think it is an utter responsibility that we need to also look at the ideal. I think the rejection of the ideal is not a good uh, uh, approach. But of course, romanticizing the ideal is also a bad approach. So, uh, so I would start, first of all, that would be my invocation, Bunty. The second thing is, I think we have leaders in businesses, we have leaders in politics, we have leaders in society, those influencers. Everywhere you go, even in your society that you stay, there would be a chairman, there would be a secretary, a treasurer, right? In your family circle, in your relative, there would be some people who dominate the norm, what should be done and stuff. So we have leaders all around us. It's not that we don't have leaders. The question is, are they the kind of leaders we want? And okay, in absence of anything that you can do to change that leadership, what is it that you can still do? And I think I go back to my thing which I must have mentioned earlier in the podcast. हमारे हाथ में क्या है? हम क्या कर सकते हैं? And I think there the first thing you can definitely do is at least lead yourself better than what you're leading till now. How are you taking care of your body? How are you taking care of mental, emotional health? How are you entering into conversations with people where you leave them energized rather than drained? How are you putting forth your point where you don't hurt the individual? You have the depth and you have the presence where you can put across a point which is disagreeable, and yet in a very polite and respectful manner. I think that's the kind of leadership that is the first step that we all need to practice. Second, I think wherever possible, wherever we feel we can voice our reimagined leadership, our objection to current leaderships, we should exercise that in whichever way we feel is appropriate to our circumstances. If there are institutions, if there are people who are working towards change of leadership style, we should support them in whatever manner that is possible, whether through social media, through attending their conferences, supporting their on-the-ground activities. Fourth, I think if you don't want to do any of that, I think there is still a lot of people around you who are doing greater good. Just join them. I think we need to increase the force of good in the society, while the force of the bad, the worse, keeps increasing and bleeding the headlines every day.
That's such a beautiful answer. I have a beautiful non-question. I'll just make two statements. You can react to them as you want. So one of the thoughts running in my head vis-a-vis your previous answer was when you said we need to take responsibility for ourselves. What is leading us? How are we leading ourselves? So it is leading leaders in that sense. So there is some representative I have at a bigger level in my society, in my constituency, in my country, in my world, whatever it would be. And then there is me who has responsibility towards myself. And there is this dynamic rapport relationship happening, which you talked about. Second thing that I want to ask, comment on is you have redefined leadership completely with your this present answer, because you landed up saying a greater good is important. So the reason of having a leader in the first place or having a representative, I want to bring up a very small episode. I have just started creative training for kids, and we were forming teams. For my presentation and for other things, I have been taking advice from youngsters, including my own kid and my friends' kids. They are very, very vocal about the fact that please do not sit in judgment, even if the kid is not performing according to whatever assignments you are giving them during the class. And while it may seem, oh, it's very easy to say, and I did break that norm because I did not know how else to guide them. I needed to say something to them for them to understand this is not empty creativity. There can be a purpose to it, at least associated purpose, knowingly or unknowingly. And yet, this constant refrain from the person who designed my presentation to my own kid and to other kids who my partner has, we landed up calling them not team leaders but team representatives. So the people who came there to represent their team were just that, representatives, not the leaders of the team. So this was a conscious choice that we did of language and how it impacts them. Of course, we wanted to win their hearts and their minds, and this was a class that we are trying to get into a nascent territory. What we are doing is has not been done for this age group, at least I am not aware of. So trying to get into that zone, you want to win them. But having said that, I like the fact that whoever else worked on it, they did not have such pressures, but they were very unequivocal in the fact that we needed to tone down our judgments, and that helped me do a better job actually, because certain things happened that I couldn't even understand, and I had to appreciate that it was an out of the box answer, and I had to take it at face value. So my submission, the second submission is that you have redefined leadership. Greater good is more important. So you're saying, I will not get into the what is greater good because it's a lot of discussion that can happen there. But greater good generally, everybody is happier, more healthier. There is more equality in different parts of the society. Those kinds can be people are kinder, uh, more considerate about each other's well-being. Those can be considered as greater good, which has always been the case for humankind, I would say, after we became humans, so to speak. What do you have to say to this? I just took two lines from your answers, and they've really sat with me very well.
Ji.
How are you building up on this context when they start interjecting with society, for example?
Yeah. I think let me start with the notion of this. There is this thing uh, of judgment and non-judgmental approach.
Okay.
I feel that we need to nuance that. There could be adaptive judgment, adaptive non-judgment, and there could be maladaptive judgment and maladaptive non-judgment.
Hmm.
And I think we need to sit with this because I think maybe we are not looking at the concept as a whole, as a society, in the right manner, is what I feel. Adaptive judgment is something that helps each other in some way. Uh, uh, Adaptive non-judgment is, again, it should help each other in some way in the long run. In the short run, there may be ups and downs and stuff. Maladaptive judgment would be where we break each other's back and degenerate each other chronically. Maladaptive non-judgment would be we just play bystander to each other, even when each other becomes a nuisance to each other or the society. I think we need to do more heavy lifting in our minds. I think we've entered into an era where what I was fortunate to define in my first book and even in the second book, I think like the physical body exertion leads to physical fitness. I think the mind exertion will lead to mind fitness. So we need to create our own mental gyms now, and we need to make that heavy lifting. We can't. I think this approach towards simplistic, easy on the mind and easy on the body is not going to lead us far. We need to reimagine again, how, because what will happen is, because for adaptive judgment and adaptive non-judgment, we'll have to really do a lot of cognitive heavy lifting, think more, understand more, be more curious, disagree differently, experiment more, be willing to be wrong, be willing to acknowledge I don't know. I think these are heavy costs to self in the society, and we need to take that up. That's my first invocation. In fact, I'm reminded of Kabir's uh, verse, which is Guru Kumhar Shish Kum hai Gargar Kade Khot, Andar Sahar De Bahar Bahe Chot. I think he's very clearly saying that the true Guru Shishya relationship is one where it's not cuddling each other all the time, or just being that strict disciplinarian and breaking each other. I think जैसे कुम्हार एक पॉट बनाता है, द क्ले पॉट, वो अंदर से सहारा दे के बाहर चोट देता है. अगर वो सिर्फ सहारा दे और चोट नहीं दे तब भी नहीं बने, और सिर्फ चोट दे और सहारा दे तब भी नहीं बने. I think we'll have to do this role with each other. सहारा भी देना है और चोट भी देनी है, बट इतनी देनी है कि वो घड़ा बनते रहे, खुद भी बने और दूसरों को भी बनाए हम लोग, which of course is a lifelong project, I think, and that's what maybe overwhelms us, because we want to reach certain finalities and just relax there, but I don't think life is that.
Yeah, when you said that, I said, okay, so this is like, is use the right word, lifelong process. Uh, what helped you slow down? Because what you're asking is actually this. When you say we have to have a nuanced understanding of the subjects and we need to go, in your words, do heavy lifting of the mind on certain topics which require that kind of uh, understanding and wisdom. Uh, there is discomfort in it. There is just no doubt about the fact that it's easier to be simplistic and judgmental because it forget judgmental, even if you're non-judgmental, just to say, okay, let it be or not. You did define it very well, adaptive and maladaptive in that sense, and both judgment and non-judgment being part of that. One of the things that I was telling you about before we started the podcast, the reception to my new journey has been excellent, and it has yielded to results that were not part of what I was trying to do. And that surprised me. And I pride myself on being a good advertising person. I know what is so. I used to read Perry Mason books, who was a famous fictional lawyer, uh, and he had this thing about never ask questions that you do not know the answer to. As a lawyer, he did not want to be surprised by the answer that the whoever is giving, so that he seems like he's lost control of the case at that point of time. And I found that was a good thing to follow. Work hard enough to come to some kind of answer, ask the right questions to some extent. Now I am far more freer with these things. But my question to you comes from that space of unknowing is not that bad, Mane, and failure is not that bad. And that was my approach before, even before I took a class last week. So the whole thought was it's okay to fail, it's okay to have bad answers. How have you slowed down the process and gone through these? You can't be, I'm sure you keep mentioning 12 or 13 years back how you started this journey, but on day one it wouldn't have been easy at all. On day two it wouldn't have been easy. On the first month it would be just about bearable. What am I doing with myself? Because you're breaking down a structure that has been working for you, and people go through their entire lives like that. So this also goes back to your first answer, leadership. How are you taking leadership for your own self? How did you slow down? What is the process that, and I want you answered this before in earlier podcasts, I wouldn't deny that. My question is more about the negatives. When you don't know what is the answer, how does Hemant deal with it? And how did you deal with it when you were not so wise?
Actually, by conveniently celebrating my foolishness that I know, and that I'll get there I'll get there in 6 months, I'll get there in a year, and it's just a matter of a few weeks or few days, and I'll be there. I think that was my biggest foolishness, I would say, of underestimating the work that is in front of you. Um, Being overconfident, being pseudo spiritual, uh, being later I learned there is a spiritual ego also.
Yeah,
When
true.
you start believing that you're superior to others. And, yeah, so I have been through those phases, and along the way, I think doing the difficult, revising relationship with the easy and the difficult in a way, revising relationship with the what is this thing called success and failure, who's defined it, and do I want to live those definitions defined by somebody else, or do I want to create my own approach to this one life that I have? And of course, this journey is not you don't have concrete roads and traffic signals on this journey. It's a jungle, and sometimes you come across somebody put up a sign on a particular tree, and you know that somebody's been on this path. And sometimes for days on end and weeks on end, you're all alone in the jungle, sometimes worried about something might just come and topple you over. I think all of that is there, but I think there is something that tells you, keeps telling you that there is something beyond comprehension, uh, and you need to believe in that and keep working, keep doing the work.
How do you trust this fragility? This fragility of not knowing. When you said that you keep working, something tells you. Now that something tells you is a, there used to be a nice phrase that Times of India used to use, the still smaller voice. And exactly, it's a still small voice, and it just kind of whispers. Half the time we don't even know that it is whispering to us. But when it does, and when we hear it, there is this whole fear of it is mad. We are just thrusting ourselves into the dangerous territories of things that have not been discovered or explored yet by ourselves. What makes you trust is the question then.
I don't know. I can answer. I don't know what I can give an answer to that, Bunty. I can just say the following, that as you just go through your days and you sincere towards some of your work, not all of your work, and you are able to absorb failures and get up again and do the work, I think that process gives you grounding. I think the process is grounding, and that grounding keeps you on the road. I know that during these years, there were times when I was heavily living in my mind, doing little, um, and getting all kinds of, complexes. But I think eventually it has to have a balance of dhyan yoga, bhakti yoga, gyan yoga, karma yoga. I think leaning on any one for a longer time, maybe it works for somebody. For me, it didn't. So I keep a watch on myself. I keep a balance. I try to keep a balance, and that's what I think. I trust the process more than anything else.
Uh, you've given a lot of good answers on the podcast very often, but this has to be one of the best. This has to be certainly one of the best because the simplicity of this answer is so beautiful that you keep walking, you keep falling, you get up. The process will take care of itself. Don't bother about whether you're walking or you're falling or you know or you don't know or you. Even the tags of Bhakti Yoga है, इस वक्त ज्ञान योग है, ऐसा नहीं है. You're working, feeling your way through. Like I remember many years back, there used to be a wonderful magazine called Life Positive, and somewhere in one of the articles there was this mention of a game where kids are playing in the garden and adults are supposed to walk through the garden blindfolded. That's all. Now you don't know the kids don't know you. Kids are playing, doing their thing, painting and dancing and drawing and playing and whatever they are doing. You have no control over the matter, and you have to just walk from one end of the garden to the other. And I thought, till date, I think it is one of the most difficult and most beautiful exercises ever, because it really tests the ground of everything that you stand for. You can do a lot of things. You can slow down, you can walk faster through it, or you can be angry about it, or you can be confused or whatever, but that process will not leave you. The process will not leave you, and I hope one of the days in my life I am able to do this with the trust that is required in the universe, and saying, okay, let's do this. Because there can be this one is that the kids might hurt you. That is something I'm very comfortable with. But that I might hurt the kids, I'm not very comfortable with. That I may land up keeping my foot on somebody's hand, or but that is also something that you have to learn to be light with yourself and the other. And kids wouldn't care. It is like life. It is what it is. The reason why we are getting into these nuances now is uh, the stamp of words like leadership, good leadership. Like even when I was listening to, uh, I remember the Ramayan thing, and when Ravan was speaking, initially Lakshman is really not convinced. He's not convinced by Ram's logic, and while he comes because he reveres his brother and listens to him. But when Ravan starts to speak, the expression on this actor's face keeps on changing, and he kind of comprehends what is happening a lot more deeply than he had earlier. And it kind of, I think there is also a question, so why did he get killed? Why did Ravan get killed is a question he comes and asks. If I remember vaguely what happened. Uh, the whole idea of going beneath the surface of what a word stands for, what a meaning stands for, who am I in this process, how has this meaning come to me, why am I so attached to it or unattached to it. You did speak of spiritual ego. I think one of the things that we forget most times is, oh, I am a meditator, oh, I am a devout person, oh, I fast every Monday or Thursday or whatever that day is. Oh, I don't kill insects. Oh, I wear this mask and move around and whatever. Whatever it is that all of us do and feel very happy about that we have reached somewhere. Life and the world doesn't seem to care. There is a whole energy that keeps on running through good and bad and evil and uh, goodness, whatever. Every aspect is perfect in its own place. So I have a random question. So many years back, I had this friend who had asked me whether I had any kind of moment in Vipassana. And I landed up, I had never thought of it like that. I landed up telling her one moment. I said, for one moment during a course when I was not doing anything, I said the world is perfect as it is. I cannot touch it without spoiling it. I cannot do anything. It is just what it should be. Then she looked at me and she said, what else? So I said, no, nothing else. So I also didn't have an answer. I would want you to react or say what you want to, because that's one of the um, things that I don't understand fully. I will have to admit, but I have in one of the earlier courses it had just happened, and it had happened on its own, and I have no clue. But it was like very clear that anything I do can only spoil it. Spoil being a very strong word, but I don't need to mess around or get worked up. It's okay. Whatever is falling in place. Uh, how do you see this? Because again, if I know him, and there is a deeper way to look at this thing.
So sometimes we may have concepts without experience, and sometimes we may have experience without concepts.
Yes.
And I think this one belongs to the second category where we do have experiences. We could have experiences and we may not be able to wrap them in concepts and wrap them in definitions and words
Yeah.
sometimes. The second thing is, most of the, or rather, a lot of knowledge systems of the past have tried to look at fundamentally four kind of questions. One is, what is the nature of self? What is the nature of the reality? How do we know? What is the nature of knowledge? And then knowing all of and having all of these three, what should we do? That's the fourth one, which is what is ethics and aesthetics? What's the right thing to do? And there are different knowledge systems that have weighed in on this. Some knowledge system, of course, talks about withdrawal from the world, moderation, Some talks about participating in the world for reducing suffering or helping people. So there are some knowledge systems that have talked about just go rampantly on pleasures. It's just one life, do the best you can. There are some knowledge system that says that if you keep accumulating, that means that the divine is behind you. That's the signal that divine is behind you. That you're successful, which means the divine is supporting you. So you have all kinds of. We live in such interesting world, um, which has so many disparate uh, thoughts and beliefs. Um, and then on an ongoing basis, we encounter a lot of people, and we don't know where they're speaking from, what belief system. We only exchange a few words, and we are then supposed to uh, uh, get to the roots of each other. I remember reading a book by Professor Trilochan Sastry, a wonderful book. He's actually studied the basis of. By the way, Professor Trilochan Sastry is the same guy who's the founder of the Association of Democratic Reforms, the guy who's literally got the election bond mandate against the government. He was the guy.
Oh,
His organization filed in the Supreme Court. He's wonderful human being and does so much good in the society. And he also happened to be dean of IIM Bangalore at one point in life. So an accomplished guy. Uh, he wrote this book on world religion, and the very first paragraph is a very interesting paragraph. He says, as humans, we haven't gone and studied deeply our own religion, let alone others. And here we are commenting on each other's religion or speaking so confidently about our own. And I think that's the mess that we don't realize, that the kind of mess that we are creating every day in drawing room conversations, in even in podcasts sometimes. If I don't know about something, I should just shut up. Or maybe if I say I should qualify, I don't know enough, and this is my limited view. Uh, so I I think
this is so beautiful. In fact, you called it a mess. I thought I saw the solution in that because you kind of preempted three of my questions and answered them in that one line. So one of the questions was, okay, what would be good leadership? Or the another one was, how do you see our personal role in this? And there was another one. So all of them kind of this one paragraph that you spoke about, that we just need to try and see the other point of view. The third question I had was, do you ever have an argument with someone? Because you always go into the nuance, so then it kind of diffuses itself. But this is so beautiful because you kind of said, okay, you have to try and see the other person's point of view. Uh, and maybe it is as simple as that at times. While we are talking about nuances, and obviously there is a lot of things that need to be seen. But just this black and white, very strong version of my country versus yours, or this league, if I were to use a term from the First World War, this league of nations versus this uh, people who caused the problem, and then this, it continues the problem and kind of supports what you said in your first answer, that we are continuously looking at others to resolve the problem, or a system to, or a static leadership to come up with it, or a static set of views and opinions and ways that we think the answer should come up. In fact, when you were saying your first answer, I remembered that when I was doing my BA, there was a famous thing from Tale of Two Cities, that every now and then when the rebellion wins and comes and makes the government, they make the same mistakes that the earlier one made, because now they are in power, they realize that okay, this can be done, this can be done, and it had made me feel very, very concerned that okay, this is supposed to be the answer, and now the answer has become a new question, and we still don't have the answer because it's just reshuffling of concepts and words and leaders and names and parties and whatever have you, and it does not resolve it. But I think I must thank you for having this very peaceful, smooth way of looking at a few of the what some of the most uh, difficult conflicts happening in the world as we see today, not only referring to the wars and stuff like that, but the internal scenarios and the social scenarios. And uh, there's something good about your answers today in a manner that it's always there, but there is something very palpably alive. People can work with individually and socially. Uh, Yeah, in that sense, I think taking responsibility would be a good thing for our own selves to start with, and then figuring out what will happen to the world. The world will take care of itself, I guess. I would want to stop here because it's never easy to let go of a conversation with you, but I had promised that I'll end in time. And thank you so much, and I have the utmost gratitude for your company and this conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Bunty. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.